honestly, it could have gone like very southwards, very much so. But there's something in me that is just like, I'm just jumping off the mountain and I will see if I will fly. That has always been my thing.
Elsa, welcome.
Thank you.
You started your career in fashion and grew Wandler since 2017 into an internationally known brand. And what I really love about Wandler, it's not only a fashion brand. It became, in my opinion, a whole world. And today we're in something completely different because we're in an interior that you designed. And I would love to know, how did you go from creating products to people, for people, to creating a house for someone? Like, why did you come to that decision?
I don't know. It's like, I don't think it's like a decision that I like straight away made, that I felt like, oh my God, I'm going to do interior design now. I think it happened organically. I guess with Wandler, it's not like new for me. So I guess with Wandler, I have been building pop-up spaces. I've been doing like in-store events. I've been doing the interior design for the showroom spaces. So actually interior design has always been a part of my work with Wandler. And since the beginning with Wandler, I have worked with young artists. So that can either be contemporary artists like designers that make interior, or like actually art for walls. So it has always been that second nature to me. So it didn't really felt like, in that sense, a different step. I've always been busy, like you said, like I've always been busy with creating a world, and that is so much bigger than creating a brand. So it's creating an environment, creating a space where people, you know, like can experience the whole space, and then a product is just like in addition to that space. And I see an interior basically not really different than that. So to me, like, if you're interested in a nice bag, if you're interested in nice clothing, you're probably also interested in a nice interior. You're probably like, that is probably your interest world. So for me, it wasn't that strange step. So it was quite natural. And yeah, I mean, now I've started to do it, like, I would say more professionally. Also, that happens quite intuitively. So yeah, it's more like, I don't know, my way of expressing, I guess.
Yeah, but it is different though if it's someone's personal interior and there's already architecture. There's someone that has their own taste, that maybe already has furniture or something that they take with them. But we will dive into that later. Yeah. I first want to go back to how everything started, because I know you studied photography for a while, and then studied fashion. So I want to know, like, how did that? Yeah, how was that beginning of that journey for you as a creative? Like,
you did your research.
Yes,
like,
I did.
Nobody asked me about the photography journey. Yeah, I did photography for a while, 2 years actually, before I went to Amphi to study fashion design. I was actually assistant photographer for 2 full years, and I traveled the whole world with him. And in my photography journey, which is actually like, it's such a learningful experience. I don't see myself as a creative that is basically fixed on one thing. So maybe therefore also the interior there, like, I don't know, it can, like, it's a very wide thing. It goes more like creating those worlds. So in all aspects that are in that world. And with photography, it really learned me to look at, to look at a frame, you know, like, and I really learned to, like, how do I style these things? Like, what is my sense of taste? But I also learned the job of a creative director, because always when we were at a shoot, and we did shoot for like bigger, at the time, like bigger fashion brands in the Netherlands, and like the celebrities of the Netherlands, like I've done a lot. Literally, I was like, that was until like, I think I was like 20 or 18 or 20, like quite young. And we did like, we really did travel the world. And I saw the job of a creative director, and I felt like, that is interesting, because the photographer basically is giving his personal touch, and is doing the lighting. And so I know quite some things of lighting, and I know quite some things of photography, which is really helpful if you want to go further in a creative world, because not only can I make the photos myself, but I can also understand lighting and I can understand like all of these different aspects. And I think it's so important when you build a brand, you cannot just be focused on a product because you will most likely lose in a business. You need to understand the business in full. So, and that also means the business side, you know? So that is something I learned later on after my studies. But yeah, it was a good starting point.
But still, you decided to study fashion after. So was photography first a dream of yours, or were you still searching for your path, or how did you feel at that moment?
I was quite young. I did 2 studies. So I went to St. Lucas. I did my internship with a photographer and he offered me a job straight away. So I decided to stay for a full year. And he at the time was traveling, like he was having like a big assignment to travel the world. So I went with him, I don't know, I think to 10 countries in a year. So from Suriname to New York to Marrakesh, like literally I've seen so many crazy things at a young age, which was really an experience for me. And I thought something that I wanted to do. And yes, at the moment I wanted to do photography because I was quite good in it, I think. And but I believe everything that you can train, you can exceed. Like I do really believe that it has also like it's talent, but it's also persistence. And then I just felt like I said, like I saw the role of a creative director. I saw the role of a fashion brand. I was young and I was like still in that phase where I kind of could see everything. So I decided to go to Amphi and study fashion and branding. And there, I mean, it really was learning for me, like how to build the brand side, you know, like how does that work? And then I did an internship at Levi's Made in Clothing. And that was the more the expensive line within Levi's. It's non-existing anymore. It was like more a marketing project, I guess, for them. But it was super learningful. I did my internship there as well, and they offered me a job straight away as a designer. So I basically learned my design job. I worked there for a full 4 years. I learned my design skills actually at Levi's, and also like how to build not how to build a brand, because obviously Levi's is quite old, but like this was a young brand within Levi's. We were only with 75 people. We had, you know, it was like I learned like how does a creative director work? How does a manager work within a team? Like how does the design and the merchandising goes? Like how do margins work? Like that, all of these things I didn't know during my studies.
Yeah.
So it was like, again, a different layer to my learning process, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, because I was already wondering, like, what did you learn there that you would have never learned at your studies? But that is very...
I think it's very much like if you start working, I really am, like, I'm not saying like school is not helping. I think school is very much for development and see what your own needs are. Because Levi's has never been my brand, as in I didn't design for myself. Like I am not the customer. I mean, obviously I wear jeans, but I'm not a jeans girl to say. But you really do learn how, you know, like how a structure of a company works, how collection work, how design works. I always looked further than just doing my own job, I guess. So at the time at Levi's, I was doing their lookbook photography because they were like, oh, Elsa can photograph, you know. I was going with them to do campaign shoots, and you know, I was like I was doing the product shots of the campaign shoot next to the photographer. It's like I've always kind of built my way in like wider than basically my job supposed to, like what my job's supposed to be. So I always kind of looked further. So I guess like that's just in my DNA to do so. Yeah.
Amazing how that has been developing over the years.
Yeah.
And I can still see that in the brand that you're building now. But take me back to 2017. Like, when did you know that you wanted to start Wandler? Was that a long dream?
I think when I was 3 years old. Like, I mean, I didn't know I wanted to call it Wandler. actually a friend said it to me. Like like when I said I want to start an own brand, he said like, you should call it Wandler, and I laughed very hard. And then my mom and dad laughed, and my grandmother, she's like, who's gonna buy? You know, like it's such a strange name. It's like because it's my last name. But I called it Wandler in the end. But no, as a child, I already knew that I wanted to be like create something of my own. I think that was never really a question. I just think it's important for everybody to learn first. You have to be ready to design under your own name or like, you know, under your own brand. It's important that you take learning curves from things, and that can be either work experience or school experience. But I do think it really helped me to have the feeling that I was ready. I think also Levi's pushed me a bit because they were moving the entire company to San Francisco, and they asked everybody like, would you like to join? And, you know, some people had that opportunity and some didn't. I straight away said like, I didn't want to go to San Francisco. Levi's was never my passion as a job in general. I do think it was an amazing team, and I learned so much on how I would like to be in a fashion business, like how I would like to be with people and with a team, and how leadership looks like. So I learned a lot from them in that kind of sense, but I didn't feel like I want to go to San Francisco. So that was basically for me a perfect starting point to say like, yeah, this is the moment I'm going to create something for myself.
And how did you know it's going to be bags? Like,
I didn't own any designer bags ever because I'm not like from a rich background, and I was like still quite young. So I didn't own any designer bags, but it was just like, in a sense, I don't think it really mattered to me what the product would be. For Levi's, I didn't design jeans for Levi's. Like that's what people sometimes think, but I actually designed like dresses and jackets and shirts all for the women's collection. So I was basically like trained in clothing design. But yeah, I just felt like a bag is something to me that you cannot fake in a sense. Like at that time, I was in that period myself where I could be like, oh yeah, I can wear like a fairly nice denim with a white t-shirt, have a pair of good shoes, you know, and you can kind of make your outfit like very luxurious with a good bag. But I didn't have that bag. So I felt like that's something that I would like to invest in. It's like a table value, I will always call it. If a bag you can put on the table, it gives you a certain amount of luxuriousness, I would say. So for me, it was like a starting point where I felt like, it's also a commercial starting point. You know, I always knew that I wanted to create something that is bigger than a bag, like bigger than a product in general. It's more about the world, like that I knew from the beginning. Yeah. So a bag made sense. So my first like how to make bags, I kind of looked up, like I looked on YouTube how to make a bag. Yeah. And that worked. Like obviously it was a process, and I had like design knowledge, but also in the second year of Wandler, I started shoes, and I never made a shoe before. And a shoe is a very, very technical process. It's like you don't like for a bag, you have one factory, and for shoes, you have 3 factories, because you have the one that makes the laces, which is like the mold for the shoe. Then you have the one that actually makes the shoe. You have the persons that make the heel, and every single part in a shoe is technical because people have to walk on the shoe. And I think it's that thing, and maybe that goes back to the interior as well, where I'm just very curious and very eager to learn. So I just went to Italy. I went to the shoe factories, and there's all like, it's mainly older men. There's also some women's, but like this, like, and they're like pattern makers, and they have just like 40 to 50 years of experience. And it's basically also just going there and learning and learning and learning and learning. And then you're able to make a shoe. I mean, Obviously, I'm not saying like it's easy and everybody can do it. Like I'm not saying that. It's like full dedication, and it will also take me 6 months of full dedication until I understand how it works. But I'm just saying, like, if you have that dedication and you are able to go somewhere to fully understand something, then I think you can do it.
Yeah. But then still, a bag is a bag.
Yeah.
So I think a lot of, the first bag already became a huge success. And it became, I think not only the name Wandler was established there, but it was also like the shape of the bag that was very new, and people were like, it's something luxury brands look for, to make a piece that is like everyone knows, oh, that's a Wandler bag, or that's this and this kind of chair, or but how did that go? Because you designed the first bag, and then, how do you get into you have now, I think, 155 retailers, but how did you get into the first one?
Yeah, I mean, yes. It's like, it's a difficult question to just answer. It's never just one thing, right? So, I mean, what I said, like, I had my learning process before, which is very important. Like, you cannot do things, like, it's not like, oh, and there's a brand. Like, that is not how it works.
No.
But I straight away knew, so I knew photography. I knew like branding, how to build a brand. I knew how to build margins and how to be healthy. And I knew design. So, like I had all of these things together. So it's not so much, sometimes when people say like, oh yeah, and that happened overnight. I mean, surely not. That happened in 10 years. So I think that's very good to understand. It's not like I've worked really hard in learning how to do things. And then with the bag, there was a part of luck, I guess, in there as well. So yes, I had designed something that was basically not there. And I also don't know, like, I guess like that's sometimes the universe that goes through you, So I think I really do believe in that. I design bags like I would design everything, like even like, for example, a space or an interior, like basically when I'm at night in bed and like my eyes close, and then I start like thinking about shapes and I think about fabrics, and that's how a process happens with me, even how this came across. And then like, if I'm really annoying, I will also start texting you at night. So with the owner of this house, we had like a lot of like texting back and forward, like at 12 or 1 at night. But yeah, and I do that with the people at Wandler office as well. I try to do that less though, because it's of course not a healthy, it's not a healthy work thing for people. But like, yeah, I think like that's what happens. And so with the Hortensia bag, which was basically the first shape that I designed, I remember I was quite nervous as well, because I designed it. I didn't really think about it. I do a lot of with molding, with clay and with paper. So it's basically like, yeah, almost like there's a Dutch word, it's called knutselen, which means like a little bit crafty, but crafty sounds way more like elevated than knutselen. But yeah, I think that is how I design. So I glue, I take, and I think about it all the time, and it goes on and on during my night sleep, and all of a sudden I just see the shape. And I cannot really say like that has been my inspiration. It just doesn't work like that for me. It's just like, it's an ongoing process in my head. And when I designed the first bag, the Hortensia bag, I also kind of knew like, oh, this feels different. It feels special. And I remember like, I was able to have appointments with, Net-a-Porter and Matches and Browns, which were at the time the biggest retailers available. And I was able to see them in London because it was not Fashion Week. They were not busy. They were like, oh, there's this new brand. Let's just check it out, because they had time anyways.
But did you show them anything? Or
No.
They just had a meeting with you?
Exactly.
They just responded to your email.
Exactly. And I worked together with Bart Ramakers, who is owner of Parrot Agency, and he did had a connection with them, but at the time not really big. So it was like he was also just like reaching out and just see like, but he had a connection. He had like a straight line, so that obviously really helped. But I straight away knew like, okay, I need to have like the correct people for photography. I need to have a correct branding idea. My website needs to be on point. So I straight away reached out to an Italian stylist, Giorgia Tal, who is still like a dear friend of mine, and Italian photographer Leonardo Scotti. And I think also these things were just correct, because I showed the buyers like those images. basically, it was August. I was in the factory making the first sample collection, and I reached out to both of them on Instagram. They apparently were like, by any sense, they were a couple, and I didn't notice that they were a couple. So it was really nice. And I said in the end, like, because I didn't show her any design. Like, she was a stylist and she was working for Italian Vogue at the time. And I said in the end, like, why did you work with me? I didn't show you design. I didn't have an own Instagram account that looked interesting. Like, why did you decide to do it? And she was like, yeah, it was August and I was bored. You know, like, basically that was just her answer. Sometimes it's that simple. So we took the bags and we drove around the Garda Lake, and we made like, I still think it's one of my favorite shoots. Like, we made like such like weird imagery without models, like with swans in the Garda Lake, and with like just like, I remember like Georgia at one time, she stepped into the pool and held the bag up. It was just like really cool visuals, because he is actually not a fashion photographer. He's more like a documentary photographer. But I think like those things, like getting the people right, getting the branding right, obviously getting the design right, because it needs it. You know, it's not one thing. It's everything.
Yeah.
And then the last step is like, yeah, like having a buyer that believes in you. So we show them, and in the beginning it was like, oh, we hope somebody will like it. But after like a few days, they were in a bidding war who could launch the brands. And what happened is that Net-a-Porter won. So they actually placed, we were the biggest unknown handbag brand they ever launched. So the biggest investment for a company like that. So we had like a major investment. And we said like, yeah, okay, so if you want to pre-launch with us, we need to have a major free marketing budget. So they accepted that. They gave us like opportunities for marketing where we didn't have to pay for as a brand. And if such a big company does that, yeah, like you're born.
Yeah.
So I remember like after when like I was like, I don't know, I think we were live for a month, and I got messages from people like, yeah, I've been following Wandler for a year now. I love it. I was like, oh, that's interesting. I've been also following it. Yeah, no, but like that is just what happens. All in a sudden, you're a brand.
Yeah.
And then, of course, then the real deal starts. Then you need to maintain your brand. And that is way more difficult than the starting point.
Yeah, because, you know, it became an instant success, and it's amazing that they, you know, gave you the opportunity. But then with success and with such a growth within the first year, what did that cost you?
I think it was like, that was the underestimated part. Like we grew actually a lot in the first 2 years. And then the world shut down because of COVID. And I mean, imagine for a young business-wise, I feel like I wasn't prepared on like dealing with a business with big numbers. Because I learned my part, you know, like what I just explained. I had a learning curve in design. I had a learning curve in how to build a team, and how, you know, like in management, maybe in photography, but not like numbers. And basically the first 2 years, like it was like a lot about numbers. And then if something happens, which is like a world tragedy almost, then yeah, for a small brand, that was really challenging.
Yeah.
But I think we've managed that quite well. I think when you're an entrepreneur, which I feel, if somebody asks me, like, what am I? Like, I would probably say that's what I am. Like, that's my core is just an entrepreneur, like in the widest sense of what it is. And I think what you need to have that is to be like very resistant. So things will change. Like literally the amount of time that I felt like, okay, this is not what we are not going to survive this. Like I cannot even count. Like the amount of times that I felt like, okay, this is like a really big problem. But then instead of being like sitting down and crying, you just pick yourself up and you look for a different way.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing.
But then, so sales went down, I think.
Well,
what exactly happened that was so challenging?
For example, I just started the shoe collection. The world shut down and I was delivering heels, like nobody was buying heels. So with a brand, you're as strong as your sellout. So basically, you can sell to your stores, but if the sellout is low, they will not buy it again, obviously. Like, so you need to really, 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 like, that is actually your biggest challenge, to make sure the products that you bring to clients actually sells. So when when COVID hit, I remember the first country that was hit like really, really hardly was Italy. We at the time had 65 stores only in Italy, and Italy shut down. So they didn't accept any orders. So we had produce everything, which is basically on our own cost. So everything was standing ready in the factory, and the stores kind of say like, okay, sorry, we cannot accept these goods because like force majeure, you know, the world is shutting down, the stores are shutting down, we cannot accept the goods. So that means that you are sitting on stock where you actually need to get paid for, because the factory also needs to get paid, because your team needs to get paid, like, and so on and so on. But if you like normally a normal delivery window is that you deliver your goods and within 15 to 30 days you get paid for a young brand. But if your goods are still standing somewhere, you're not getting paid, and you paid for the goods. Like, don't forget that. Like you like your margin is like, there's a big amount of money in the actually making of the goods. So that is a huge problem. Like, I'm talking like a huge problem. So we talked with every single store, because every store had a different story. Some stores were always going bankrupt. Some actually did go bankrupt. Some stores did had some, like, so you need to have a conversation with every single store to see like, okay, if we do this, it's bad for the store because you will have a problem, but understand this is our problem. So how can we meet at the middle? So we've done that with everybody.
But then still, I can imagine you still have a huge financial gap.
Well, we chose to, because we saw this happening, and we chose actually to have the orders of, so we were already in the second delivery of a new season. So basically we're having two problems. One, stock was ready to be shipped. And the other one was the clients just placed the new orders. They were just in the placement. So we didn't buy the materials yet, and we did. But then still, you can either accept the orders, which clients say, no, it's fine. You can just accept the orders. We will take it. But we were like, okay, this is dangerous, because if by any chance, like, nobody knew in the beginning how long it was going to take. So we were like, this is going to be dangerous. So we got the orders by 50% ourselves, meaning we also have 50% less earnings, but still you have to pay your team, like all of the, you know, like, it's like, it was a big thing. And at the moment we were with 17 people. So it was not nothing.
No. Did you have to let go of some people?
Yeah, we did at the end. We had to let go of 4 people. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That is like the downside of a business. But now I'm like, it's like, that was really, really hard for me in the beginning. And I think it still is. That will never be easy. But I'm also like, yeah, like maybe going back to you live and learn. It's just part of it's not personal.
No,
it just isn't.
You have to make that decision.
You sometimes have to make decisions that you do not want to make. Yeah.
And I know it was your anniversary this week.
Yeah.
You're together for 13 years.
No, married for 13 years.
Married.
Yeah.
So how long are you together?
16 years.
Wow.
I know, it's quite long.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you.
What I didn't know is that your husband is also part of the company.
Yeah.
So he's more in the background.
Yeah.
But I can imagine that also during that time, like, how do you navigate those things together? Because you have a business together, and then you have your personal life. Yeah. You take the risk together. Like, it's not that you have like he has his own job or business, and you know, it's risky.
It is risky. And I think if I look back, then I'm sometimes like, oh my God, we took so many risks. Yeah. Like, honestly, we did. Like, it could have gone like very southwards, very much so. But there's something in me that is just like, I'm just not even thinking about, like, I'm just jumping off the mountain and I will see if I will fly. Like, that has always been my thing. And sometimes I'm crashing. Like, it's just what it is.
Is he also like that? Or is he
No,
more
no, no,
like,
no.
Elsa, wait a minute?
Definitely more like Elsa. Like he's more grounded. He's safer when it comes to money and choices. And I'm very much not so. But I think it was like, it is challenging to do this with your partner, but it's also so much fun. I think now we really learned, I don't know, like we just found our way, I think, in the last 3 years. So now we have worked for 8 years. So sometimes people ask me like, yeah, I'm going to work together with my partner. How does it work? I'm like, yeah, just kill each other first. And then you will end up like, you will end. It's the same as having children, I guess. Like, you know, like that's also like definitely a small company at home. So I guess it's similar. So I think if you can do that together, you can also have a company. Yeah.
Well, good for you. You're building something amazing together. I know you work, you just started a gallery. So I want to move into, the interiors that you're doing and the gallery that you just opened. What made it the right time to take that step? Because you're already having a company and then you're choosing to do that on the side.
Yeah, I know. I know. Also, like, I didn't really think about that, to be honest. Like, last week we opened, like, we were the unofficially opening of Amsterdam Art Week. And Amsterdam Art Week is like, it's quite prestigious. It's really cool. And we did a gallery with Pip Atkinson, and she was like basically taking over our entire space. And we had a dinner there, and we did like a dinner with her, and we had like an entire pop-up installation in Selfridges with her. So we did quite some stuff, and we did like the opening in our, like, it's basically the gallery is our office. So we did an opening with her in our office, and then we actually started selling works of her. So like, I think in the end we sold like 6 or 7 works, which is really amazing. So it's like, how cool is this? And how does this actually like work? Because it made sense for Wandler, for the brands, you know? So because we've done a pop-up with her, we did a campaign shoot where her art is present. We highlighted her as a person. It was such a lovely, like, she's actually one of my good friends now. So it was such a lovely experience. I really do like connecting with people. And I was like, should we not do this permanent? You know, we have quite a big space in Amsterdam. We have a gallery permit because when we took over the office space, it was a gallery. So it was a gallery space. So they're 2 separate spaces. So I was like, should I not like do this, you know, for like permanent, but then also, you know, like with Wandler bags present, and with Pip, it was only like art for the walls. But since I'm working with interior, I'm working with showrooms, like everything is like a 360 approach anyways. So even when you look at this house, there's things that are in this house which are also in the gallery, because it's a cross line of artists. For example, like the work of Floor Meijenburg, which is hanging there. She was firstly in the gallery, and then I was doing this house, and it's not like necessarily that I'm like, oh, I need to take something for the gallery that I'm like filling the houses with. It's just more organically, because that is my curation at that moment. So obviously it's something that I love, and it just is it's a really organic translation, I would say. So it happened quite organically.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's working. Like, we've done the first 5 months now. So the idea of the gallery in Amsterdam, it's like open from Monday to Friday. So it's you can just come in between 10 and 6. The idea is a little bit that I want to introduce new artists every 6 months that obviously are created by me or by Johanna, who's our art director. So we are always in search for new people. So there's normally like 5 to 6 artists, for example, that we work with. And the idea is a little bit like same as the Wandler bags. Like, how can we bring something that is very much on a designer level, and it's very much like this high-end feeling, but you don't have to be afraid walking in and being like, you know, like sometimes where there's a gallery or a very prestigious store, like you're afraid to walk in to ask for a price, or you know, like I kind of want to open up that art world a little bit, and fashion maybe even as well, where it's just like also like younger people, not even younger people, but just like you buy your first home, you would like to have a nice artwork. I know there's so many people that are interested in art, but maybe they are just a little bit too afraid to just walk into a gallery. I just think it's nice to have a space where there's also some accessible pieces, for example. So, for example, the works of Floor Meijenburg are between like 700 and 1600, which is like a really, really good price. Or the stool that we see here from Rutger de Recht, who is a ceramic artist, you know, they're like 1,300 euros. And it's a beautiful piece for your house. It just makes that extra layer, but it's not something that I mean, it's money, but it's something that you can invest in. And I think that is an important thing for me, to have that balance between something that is accessible to these really high-end pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you created this interior. What did you learn from being, I mean, you've done a lot of different things, but your main focus the past few years have been fashion. What did you learn from everything before that has been really helpful to create the gallery and the interiors? And what did you really have to unlearn?
I don't believe in unlearning. Let's start with that. No, because it's just like that would give the impression that you like. I think it's very important to maybe not follow a set of rules, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, and maybe...
but was there then something challenging, or that you were like, oh, this is something that's really new about this element of the business that I've not...
I think what is like, maybe it's a funny point that you touch on, because I think what happens if you're in a business, for example, with Wandler, you indeed start learning all of these things, what works, what not works, the margins, how you can, so your mind becomes very stuck, basically. And there's this Buddhist that says, like, always start with a beginner's mindset, because a beginner's mindset, the one that doesn't know, is free to think. And I think maybe that was part of the reason why I stepped into interior. And this is now the second house that I fully finished from beginning to end. So literally until like coffee table books. I think there's something about the beginner's mindset to not be stuck. And I actually had to unlearn that within Wandler, because I notice, then young people come in and maybe you work with, like, I work with Wandler with a designer, Roel is his name. He's so talented. It's like, honestly, so talented. But you notice sometimes that I can become stuck because of the learnings that I had. And that is, I think, the biggest fault you can actually have as a designer or as a creative. I think it's very important to let that go and think freely. And it's difficult, it's very difficult. So you kind of like sometimes need to go back. So I think that is part why I also started interior. I think it's very open and intuitive for me. So no rules.
Yeah. But then it's also, you have to work with a client that maybe has their own taste, or you have already, a space that already has its own architecture. So it's different from creating a product to creating a world for somebody else. Like how...
I yes and no, because I do believe like... so maybe I'm not your typical interior designer. And I think that is maybe a good thing to note. Like I have a specific sense of taste. And I showed, like, if you look at my website, you can very much see my signature. You need to come to me if you like my signature. If you come to me for a different type of taste, like, I'm not a person that is going to do that. Like, I'm not going to do that for you. Like, that is just like, so you basically you need to already sit in my signature. It's like, I'm doing this because I really, really enjoy it. And if it's like, if we like each other's, like if somebody is into my world, right? It's surely a combination of people working together, but that's the same for bags. It's like, it's not like, oh, this is my will and this is what I will do. I will discuss with the entire team. What do you like? What do you like? But in the end, it's my signature. And for example, with this home, like Jaco was saying, I really do not like green. Okay, sure. I love green, but I'm not going to search for a green sofa because that's what I like. But the thing is, like, I do think if you work with me, you give me the freedom to build within my signature. And that is just, I think, maybe the privilege that I've built for myself. And that is also the standpoint, what I would stand for. So I'm not saying, oh, I don't listen to the client. I surely do, but within my signature, obviously. And then it can be the most fun process ever. So I think with Jaco, for example, it has been the most, like, honestly, we have become best friends and we've been on a holiday together. So it has become like a super nice project. But I do think that's because, like, if you're both excited, obviously he picked me for my taste because he saw the previous house that I've done and he was like, this is what I would like for myself. And I make mood boards and I, like, it's not like, oh, I pitch one thing and that's it, but I make mood boards within my signature. And then obviously you look together at these mood boards and you'd be like, this is what I like. This is what, it's always a partnership, but in a brand, it's also partnership.
Yeah.
Everything is a partnership. But I understand what you're saying. Like, a client can be like, I have this whole set of furniture that I want to bring and I have like all of this, but I guess like then I'm not your person. So I actually did had some requests where, because I also do the art buying, I prefer to also do the art buying. It's not necessarily that I want to do like your entire house. I can also do a room, but it's nice to then at least have a full concept written in that room. At least if you want to have, if you want to have my taste, like in that sense. So I had somebody being very interested and they were like, I really want to have, like, I saw your last two houses and I really want to have what you are having. But they had like major artworks that I was like, I'm just going to not be able to fit these in. If you're, like, if you want to go for my taste level, that like, that's probably not what I would fit in. I can try to place them somewhere else. So I'm not saying like throw them away, but I would probably be not your person. And I think it's very good, like, as, this is something I can be very, I wouldn't say like picky is not but I can really pick and choose the projects that I do want to work for, because I mean, this is not my solely profession. I do think it's better for me to really pick the projects that are a right fit for both ways, right? Yeah. So I would not do that project if it's like, if, for example, if somebody has a lot of furniture that I'm like, okay, like, like, you pick me for my taste, and then we will look together, how we can make that you, obviously, but within my taste.
Yeah. So for you, it also really feels like, hey, the client is part of the team and creating it, but it's my taste, but of course we will do it together.
It's like, it's a partnership. It's a partnership. But for example, I can really appreciate, like, my husband, like, I sometimes feel sad for him because my husband really likes like a lot of wood, white, and like maybe Vincent van Duysen kind of atmosphere. Well, that's not me, like, clearly. I can very much appreciate it. I mean, if I'm going on holiday and I would stay in a house like that, I really think it's beautiful. But that's not something that I would be like, I could create it, but it would be like, I would be copying somebody. I would be not being myself. So if that is your taste, you don't need to ask me. So I think when you go to an interior designer, you pick somebody for the person's sense of taste. And if you have a very strong sense of taste yourself, then I would always say, do it yourself. It's the same as like an artwork. Like, do you want to go to an artist and buy art from the person? Or do you want to tell the artist what the person should paint? Because then probably paint yourself, So you buy art from an artist. I see that like that, yeah.
Yeah. And that is the same with a bag. If you love a bag from a certain brand, buy that bag. Don't ask the brand to create something that's not in their signature.
But it's important to see that a brand, a bag, a product, an interior design, everything is a partnership. Nothing happens with just one person. My team is incredible, and their opinion and taste level goes into the entire brand. And in this house of Jaco, there's also his voice. Like, it's important, but you come together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And was there something during this, the creation of this project that was a huge challenge, or was there something that went wrong?
Well, I mean, I think a lot of things went wrong, obviously, because it's like, it's a house and, you know, like I've never done, and we started from the scratch, right? There was nothing here. When I've met Jaco and he looked at the house that I did and he was like, that is really what I want. We first had a discussion because he had a sofa from a previous house. And I already looked at the sofa and I was like, yeah, maybe we are selling this sofa. And, you know, like I felt like this is a little bit like gray ground. Like I need to take this slowly because he didn't want to sell that sofa. But in the end, we sold the sofa. And I think the sofa became kind of a challenge within this house because we actually did buy a different sofa in the beginning, which was gorgeous, but it was not nice to sit on. You know, you live and learn. And we had like marble breaking down, and you know, like things happen when you're doing something from scratch, building a house from scratch. But what I think is so nice is that we've done everything. Everything was like, you know, like same as how I would build a business. I don't think we go into a stress level. We be like, okay, what are the challenges? What is like working? What is not working? And how can we fix it? You know, like I think, and then we keep it like very light in that sense. But what I loved, you know, like, of course, with houses, there's always an architecture and a structure of a building. And I think that is great. That is the beauty of doing interior design, because that inspires you to do like something that you maybe would not have think of because it's not there. So when we entered this house, the first thing we saw was obviously the windows. They are so gorgeous. And then I really do believe that you first need to do like your biggest things in because this is a very small space. It's like 48 square meters, and I think the living room is 30. So there's a lot of things coming together in one small space. And we always make the joke that we have a lot of like Beyoncé's, you know, like every single piece is doing a single show, you know, like it's a single show, it's a single woman show. But it's very important for me when we started design to make the biggest choices first. So the color of the kitchen, for example, like we made it in a very dark aubergine color, and the windows frames. I think we really chose colors to start with. So we really started with a color palette. And we went here in different times on the day to really see how the color works in different lighting, how the light is in the morning, how the light is in the evening. I love an interior where you kind of enter and it's like, it's somehow a rest for the eye. So you don't walk in and you're overwhelmed by everything what happens. But still, if you sit down, there's a lot of interesting points. But that's building on. Like first you need to really define your bigger blocks. So yeah, it was really fun to create that together with him. And that was very much like, obviously, maybe I made a pre-selection, but then obviously his voice in what he would actually like loves or doesn't love. It's key.
It's a collaboration.
It's a collaboration.
Well, I love how all these things that you love came together, and that you now have multiple businesses that all are creating one world. And that you all see it as a partnership and as a business that it makes sense how it all blends together. If 100 years from now someone dives into the archive of Elsa Wandler,
100 years.
Yeah, 100 years. What do you hope that they take from your story, or what they find on the things you created?
Oh, I hope there's a lot of gold that they find under the ground. You know, jewelry. They were like, oh, it's beautiful jewelry. Yeah.
Yeah, because you love jewelry.
Yeah, I do. I love jewelry. I don't know. I don't have that thing. I don't know. I don't really care, to be honest. No, I don't. I don't have that legacy thing.
That feeling of I want to leave something behind.
No, very much not. Like I want to really live my life in the now. I think that's the most important thing. And then what people find for over 100 years, I'll hope for them it's jewelry. And if the brand Wantler is still existing, I mean, that would be great. That would be so fun, you know. But it's not my vision for now. No, I'm just enjoying. Yeah.
And what is for the future? Like, what's coming up next? Are there still things coming up next?
Well, no, I'm actually like, I think now I'm at a stage, hey, Elio, I'm in a stage where I'm actually defining the things that I just started. You know, we are now going to our second gallery, which we are launching in the middle of July. We have some amazing new artists coming. So I'm very excited for that. Because we started with quite some, how do you say it, like more muted artists, and now we go to full color, and also quite some international ones. So I'm quite excited for that. I'm actually in the conversations of starting a second house. I have this meeting this afternoon, actually. So I'm basically a second house, a new house, the third house that I'm doing. Yeah. So I'm have this meeting this afternoon, and I will most likely start like this week. On a new project, which is really nice. I'm excited to do that. And I mean, obviously, I would hopefully in the end, so the idea of the Wantler Gallery, in Dutch it's called Kamer. But if you switch the K and the M, you have maker. So it's basically, Kamer means room. Maker is, you know, in the room we bring together makers. And the idea is that if you have enough rooms, eventually you will have a house. So the idea would be that, you know, in Paris, in Milan, in New York, we would have Wantler houses. And yeah, that would be my absolute dream. And obviously, I would like that everything comes together there. So it could be, you know, maybe a store where you can obviously buy the bags. Maybe there's like nice fragrances. Like I think everything needs to come together, but also like the interior and the art, that is like everything is a curation and would be for sale. And in my ideal world, I think the top floor is going to be a meditation room. Yeah, that would be so cool. Just like a house. Yeah, a house of experience.
Well, I look forward to it. Thank you so much for sharing your story and everything that's still coming. And I look forward to everything that is to come.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Amazing.